Watch this.
From out-of-state dark money trying to rig our elections.
Election ads. They're overloading our mailboxes this time of year, but they can also be overloaded with misleading or flat-out false information, which is why we're putting Prop 1 under the microscope. From being an old warehouse to being the home to modern theater, the Boise Contemporary Theater is looking to get a little more modern with its space, and you might be able to help.
It's a part of our history of New Plymouth.
It's a perennial part of New Plymouth's history that is holding on, but just barely. The push to keep the mesmerizing mode of moving water from becoming a memory. Well, it's that time of year when we all get inundated with mailers and political ads, both on TV and online, which, as we've already touched on, are allowed to stretch the truth just a bit or maybe rip it apart completely. That's where the fact check comes in. Maybe you've seen the ad featuring Speaker of the House Mike Moyle speaking out against Proposition 1, the open primaries and ranked choice voting initiative. It's led to several inquiries about what's true, what's not, and what needs context. Like Sue near BSU is having trouble finding out who is putting the money behind Prop 1. Joe Paris has that answer and breaks down what's what with the Moyle ad.
I'm Speaker Mike Moyle.
The Political Action Committee Idaho Rising has a new ad across the airwaves. PAC Chair and Idaho House Speaker Mike Moyle speaking out against Proposition 1. Moyle says Idaho's future is at risk.
From out-of-state dark money trying to rig our elections.
Looking at public campaign finance figures, Moyle is correct about money coming in from out of state. The main group pushing for Prop 1, Idahoans for Open Primaries, has received close to $2 million from groups outside of Idaho. The group Unite America out of Colorado has donated $1 million, Article 4 out of Virginia $425,000, and Way Backpack out of Wyoming contributed $250,000. So yes, the top three contributors are out of state. Is it dark money? No, not really, since we can track it and find mission statements from the groups. Unite America is working to address partisan primaries, something they see as a problem. Article 4 has a similar mission, advocating for structural reform to partisan primaries for the reasons that Idahoans for Open Primaries cite in their work. Are the out-of-state groups trying to rig elections? No, but they do want to see them run in a new way, like Proposition 1 aims to do. Moyle says that Proposition 1 is a threat to Idaho and that the governor agrees.
That's why Governor Little signed a bill banning it.
That is true. In 2023, Idaho lawmakers passed and Little signed a law prohibiting ranked choice and instant runoff voting in Idaho. But Prop 1, if passed, it would repeal that law. The quote on screen, by the way, from Little, it is also legit. He wrote this in a paragraph in a newsletter back in September.
Prop 1's ranked choice voting is confusing, unfair, and costly.
Something being confusing or unfair is opinion here. Proposition 1 would treat all candidates the same and give each the same opportunity to win in the proposed format. On cost, Idaho would need to invest in new technology because the current election system here cannot run the proposed format. Here is what Secretary of State Phil McGrain says.
We've estimated that it could cost as much as $25 to $40 million. That is an educated estimate based on what we have spent on election equipment in the past. Without really doing a competitive bid, there's no way to know for sure what this would cost our state.
Important to note that those costs would mostly be one-time purchases, but this is up to the voters if a new format is worth the cost or not.
Ranked choice voting eliminates the concept of one person, one vote, and undermines our confidence in elections.
It's a good messaging line, but needs some context. In the proposed format, every voter gets one ballot to cast with the same opportunity to rank their preferences of candidates in the general election. If you choose not to rank candidates and instead only want to select one, that is your choice. However you want to phrase it, every voter, though, has the same opportunity. It's up to you if you fundamentally agree or disagree with the format, but it doesn't undermine elections. It just does them in a different way. And coming up tomorrow here on the 208, we're expecting to take a look at the pro Prop 1 ads that are out there. Brian will do a fact check on the other side of the coin.
Okay, so it's money from out of state, a good chunk of it. but not dark money necessarily. What does that mean?
So dark money would be money that there's no way to know where it came from. And so in the context of where it came into the state of Idaho, we know where it came from. Now, a lot of times these PACs or these super PACs or there's hybrid PACs, it is hard to gather exactly where they got all the money. And then you could see where they did with it. In the context here, though, the thousands of dollars coming from Colorado, for example, I should say $1 million coming from Colorado. We don't know exactly who gave each dollar to the group in Colorado, but we know that the fundamental aspect and the important thing is it did come from this group that is working across the country to try to get things like ranked choice voting passed.
Okay, so tomorrow we're taking a look at the other ad from the other side.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. Well, the Boise Contemporary Theater is looking to become, well, more contemporary. They're hoping to upgrade their Fulton Street Theater in downtown Boise to, quote, enhance experiences across the board, or across the boards, as you say. To do that, they need to raise some money, like more than $3.3 million. Their Setting the Stage campaign has been going for about a year, and they've quietly gathered about $1 million of that goal. And while that has helped them get going on some renovations, to get the rest done, they're now taking that campaign public. Espen Schumpert stopped by the theater today and joins us now to kind of shine a spotlight on some of their plans.
Yeah, that's right. This building is almost 100 years old, and before it was home to the Boise Contemporary Theater, it was a seed warehouse. The theater has been there for 20 years, and they feel like it's time to make some upgrades. The project will happen in phases. With that, they've raised silently launching the campaign in March of 2023 has allowed them to already finish almost all of the work for Phase 1. Phase 1 takes the former Idaho Shakespeare offices, now that they are in their own space, and transform that space into what they call a ghost-like pub.
We've taken that 1,300 square foot space and gutted it and are renovating it into a pub with booths and a small stage and a bar and new bathrooms. And it's just a new space where we can invite people to come and gather before the shows and stay after the shows and keep the conversations going.
The pub will serve beer and wine once it's finished, and their idea for the space is to also bring singer-songwriters or storytellers in on specific nights of the week. The theater is anticipating an opening of their Ghost-like pub to be sometime this December, and then they'll start preparing for Phase 2 of the project, which will focus on the actual auditorium room. The seats, they have now been there for at least 50 years. Those are going to be replaced to create a new seating layout inside the auditorium.
We'll be able to utilize theater in the round. We'll be able to do alley seating so that people are on either side. We can really transform the theater to a new 21st century style of storytelling and make it whatever people need for the contemporary theater that's coming out in the future.
That includes upgrades to the loft space where rehearsals and education programs take place right now. The final piece of the project will address the basement and upgrades to dressing rooms and workspace for staff. Construction work for each of the phases will happen during summer times, so it's not in the middle of their show season. So they anticipate being able to stay open throughout the whole process. They hope everything will come together by their 2026-2027 season. Brian, they say these upgrades are really going to allow them to address growth that is happening in Boise and be able to do some additional things inside of the auditorium for seating, as well as keep up to the quality they want to provide for the future.
Okay, so the theater's been there 24 years. You mentioned those seats, though.
Yes.
They're 50 years old. They came from somewhere else.
Yes, they haven't been there for 50 years, but they're at least 50 years old, so it's time to replace them.
Yeah, the Contemporary Theater had to bounce around those first few years before they got that one open.
A few different locations they were bouncing around, trying to figure out where they would call home next.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Aspen. All right, several stories about something starting and a couple about coming to an end. Audriel Tackett tells us what else there is to know around the 208 in today's 411.
The Idaho Department of Corrections sent out its revised execution policy this afternoon. Some of the main changes include a preparation room where the prisoner will be checked for IV access. Now, the witnesses can only watch the execution preparation through a video and audio feed instead of behind the glass. Witnesses will continue to watch the execution behind the glass once the prisoner is in the execution chamber. A broken piece of Idaho power equipment likely started the Valley Fire burning east of Boise. The Idaho Department of Lands claims a cross arm on an Idaho power pole broke and likely caused an energized wire to touch the ground. The report found no evidence of problems with the cross arm, and it was inspected 3 times this year. The Valley Fire has burned nearly 10,000 acres and is 79% contained. No structures have burned and no injuries have been reported. The Roby Creek area is still in a ready evacuation status, and all forest roads and trails in the area are still closed.
Turnout's been really surprisingly good.
People started hitting the polls today for the November 5th ballot. Early voting is officially open at the Ada County Elections Office, Boise, Meridian, and Kuna City Halls, the Eagle Public Library, and the library at Bound Crossing, weekdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Early voting goes through Friday, November 1st. And remember, you can register at the polls with a photo ID and proof of residence. Medicare open enrollment is also officially open. People 65 and older or anyone with qualifying disabilities can enroll in Medicare now through December 7th. You can get free guidance on the best plan by calling an advisor at 800-247-4422. You can also call to sign up for one of the monthly Medicare webinars. Dropping temperatures means blowing out your sprinklers, tucking away your plants, and closing down bathrooms in Boise parks. Boise Parks and Recreation said they're winterizing some of the park bathrooms in Boise, which means locking their doors. There are still some year-round restrooms and portable bathrooms you can use around the parks. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Audrielle Tackett.
They've been here for 100 years. It'd be kind of sad not to have them anymore, I think.
But that's the future facing New Plymouth when it comes to its historic water wheels. What would it take to keep it turning into another turn of the century? You know what keeps the 208 turning? That would be your text messages. Send us your questions, your comments, and your criticisms to 208-321-5614. And of course, we'd be happy to turn them over before the end of the show. Idaho's history may not run too deep. I mean, the entire state history only covers about 6 generations. Our oldest building dates back to 1853, our first permanent settlement only to 1860, and Idaho only became a state in 1890. But there's still a healthy attachment to that history, a want to hold on to what we have. That is exactly what is happening in New Plymouth, a western Idaho town known for 2 things: the city's unique symmetrical horseshoe shape, the largest in the world, they say, and their water wheels. Well, not plural anymore, just one water wheel. And that's the reason for the recent turn of events. There's something to be said.
It's just relaxing.
About seeing something, doing the same thing.
Kind of mesmerizing.
It is, over and over.
I could stand out here and watch this thing all day just about.
Like when one watches
You notice
a water wheel.
that water is just steady.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's old. It's historic. It's lovely.
In perpetuity is a perfect way to describe water wheels in New Plymouth.
New Plymouth was desert when they settled here. And the only thing that changed it was the water.
First founded as a colony in 1896, thanks to the Carey Act, The canals created to carry water from the nearby Payette River helped fill the fields and the town. However, a certain canal,
This is the Noble Canal.
was carved a little lower than the adjacent fields, which meant that water had to go against gravity. So just after the turn of the 20th century, farmers figured water wheels were the answer.
They lift the water so they can irrigate that land.
At one time, there were 5.
Well, there were 2 that were above this one and then 2 that were below.
But now,
This is the only one left.
and it belongs to Elizabeth
We have a water wheel.
and Carl
That is my wife, Elizabeth.
Cleaver,
That is my dog, that's Lassie.
who bought these 40 acres 7 years ago.
Just kind of brings me back to my youth, and I had a great memories of growing up on the farm.
The water wheel
It just runs the same amount
was kind of a bonus,
day in, day out.
even convenient and quaint in this modern era of electric pumps.
But if the power goes off, this water wheel still works.
It just keeps on going.
That is, until it doesn't.
I just assumed that they would be in forever, but
While the upside of a water wheel is economic,
So it does it for free.
the downside, it can easily be clogged or damaged by debris.
It's usually one of the first things I do in the morning is go out and make sure it's turning, nothing happening tonight.
Mostly made of wood, these weren't exactly built to last.
they claim, what, 12 to 15 years? Is that what
Yeah.
they're going to look at?
And I think it's been at least 12.
And according to the canal company, if they can't be rebuilt, they need to be removed.
They said to rebuild this water wheel would probably cost $12,000 to $15,000.
A flow of funds the local Kiwanis Club hopes could come from the community.
We're a community-minded group of people, and we try to make our community a better place for everybody.
Because there aren't too many towns or farmers who can say they have a water wheel.
No, I don't think many at all. Not a working water wheel like this.
It's constant,
It's constant.
and they're trying to keep it that way.
It would be really sad to see it go. It's like from a different era. It's something special.
The New Plymouth Kiwanis Club started a fundraising campaign back in August to save that last water wheel. Their hope is to raise enough money to help Carl pay the roughly $1,000 a year it's going to take to maintain it, with a major overhaul every 12 to 15 years, as you heard. And maybe you're thinking, well, it's the Cleaver's wheel. Shouldn't they just cover the cost? True. But as Rod told us, it's also the last remaining piece of New Plymouth history. Rod told us if it becomes too much of a burden, well, then Carl's going to have to spring for a pump. And then maybe they can just use the water wheel to build a monument in town, in downtown New Plymouth, to at least have that hold on its history.
Those comet photos from the last several days, just spectacular. Thanks to everyone who has shared them with us. And hey, you've not missed your chance yet. That comet will be visible on the western horizon right around sunset every day through October, though every day that progresses, remember, gets a little bit dimmer and harder to spot as it gets a little further away from Earth. So tonight will be a great night for it, especially because we are just so clear. Look at those crystal clear blue skies over the Perrine Bridge in Twin Falls. We're at 78 degrees right now. I show you this because that 78-degree temperature is a new record high for Twin for October 15th. It's been a very warm, comfy, beautiful day. I hope you got your fill of this nice weather because it all comes crashing down tomorrow. Here's your evening outlook for the Boise area. That walk around the block this evening will be perfect. We'll see those temperatures in the low 70s right at our 7 o'clock sunset. By the way, our last sunset in the 7 o'clock hour for the season. Tomorrow, that sun will go down at 6:58 for Thursday. So observed high temperatures across the region. Mountain Home got to 84 today. We haven't quite hit 80 in Boise, but not far from it. 79 degrees the observed high in Boise. Low 70s again up in the mountains. Remember those numbers when we look at the outlook for tomorrow. Boise only getting to 63 tomorrow, 62 in Ontario, windy and just 66 in Twin Falls. And we're expecting rain showers throughout the morning in McCall, coming in a little bit later in the day for the Boise area. And overnight in McCall, that little snowflake there is a possibility of a coating of snow all the way down to 5,000 feet with the system that's bringing in these changes. 1-2 punch of systems. The first is driving a cold front through. You can see it pretty well defined with this band of clouds and precipitation over central Washington. That will continue making its trek to the east overnight tonight. It'll be on our doorstep tomorrow. Eastern Oregon gets hit first. I think the wind and the rain hold off until maybe midday to early afternoon for Boise. So kind of a topsy-turvy day tomorrow. We'll see our high temperatures early in the day, and then we'll see things stall out and cool down as that front comes in. The heaviest rain will accompany the cold front tomorrow. So it's one of those fronts you'll know it's coming through. You'll feel that wind shift. You'll notice the sharply cooler conditions, and you'll see the rain coming and going pretty quickly, tapering to just some scattered showers for the Treasure Valley by Thursday. But look at the temperatures. A first alert weather event for a head-spinning change in temperatures from near 80 today. There's our 63 for tomorrow. Just 55 are high on Thursday. Frost very likely Friday with those clearing skies and cold temperatures, but we do start rebounding over the weekend back into the mid 60s by Sunday.
All right, welcome back to the last part of the 208 on this Tuesday. Talk about some of your comments you sent in during today's show, stuff we talked about throughout the show today, like this one from Walt in Boise. It seems at least unethical for elected officials to put out an ad opposing something put forth by the very people who elected them. He's talking about probably the gathering the signatures, that people want to put this on the ballot. But again, it wasn't everybody in Idaho that signed this, just enough to get it on the ballot. So the unethical part might be also the containing of untruth in ads that is allowed in political ads, but if it's not true and you can put it in there, that might be a bit of a questionable tact, I guess. I understand what I signed when I signed for ranked choice voting. The problem lies with the Republican Party. I don't know what they're so afraid of. I'd sure like to know, says B&B. Well, the answer probably lies somewhere in here. Prop 1 will get rid of politicians who are more interested in representing a party than the Idahoans who they represent. As far as a one-time cost, look at the millions of dollars that are wasted on unconstitutional laws every year, says Chuck in Boise. Dave in Boise County kind of mimics that. Ranked choice voting just might loosen the stranglehold that extreme right wing has on Idaho politics. That's why they are running scared and blowing smoke about how, quote unquote, bad it is. That's from Dave in Boise County. Meanwhile, Steph in Boise says, Prop 1, I wish Prop 1 would have been 2 propositions. I don't like open primaries, but I do like ranked choice voting. And there are people on the opposite side of that who do like the ranked, or don't like the ranked choice, but do like open primaries. So there's something out there for everybody. And they decided to do this because just to shake it up, I guess. And it's up to you to decide if you want one or both or none. Ranked choice voting definitely is not confusing to most people. Try looking into all the funds coming into state from Texas for various political issues like book banning, this one from SK in Boise, but also all the money being pumped into the state of Idaho for, school choice and the tax credit. What used to be a voucher, now trying to make it a tax credit. So, yeah, there's lots to look into when it comes to out-of-state money coming in to change the way things happen in Idaho. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.